The year is spring of '69. Our country's going to the moon, or are we? There's a problem. They need a kid. He goes off on a secret mission. And the rest is history. I don't know. How's that for a description?
Or is it? It's Richard Linklater history.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to.
I mean, yeah. I basically, at least from my perspective, it's the best part about a Richard Linklater movie is it's like Rick sending, it's magical realism. It's you sending a kid to space. It's like straight from his imagination. You came up with this movie what age?
Yeah, like in 2004.
Yeah, so
I was thinking about my own. It was when I was doing Boyhood. I was like on year 2. I was like, oh, that actually was an interesting year. Hey, I lived near NASA. That could be a film. I hadn't thought of that. So as I started, and I thought of that fantasy I had of like, oh yeah, being recruited. It's almost like a Harry Potter thing, or a Princess Diary. Every kid has that fantasy that maybe you're special and you have some role to play in the world that could be helpful. Or something, it's so kind of
Harry Potter and Princess Diaries. I've never heard you bring up either of those movies, and
I know, but I was just thinking of a wish fulfillment of a young person, like, oh, actually, you're royalty or you're special.
It totally
and it's
makes
like
sense,
it's like a kid fantasy when you're actually so not special and you're such a suburban, left behind, just completely average. So this film is the most mundane things about growing up in the burbs at that time, mixed. Juxtaposed with probably the grandest thing humanity's ever accomplished. So those are just right on top of each other.
Well, and it's also like your perspective on what that felt like. Like we look at the majesty of space and like how you treat that like almost the same as like from a kid's perspective. My favorite part is like you treat like sand on a beach and barnacles on a post the same that you do as the space. You know what I mean? Like it's fun how those things kind of collide in this movie, like in the best way. Like you're just as fascinated by mundanity.
Yeah, it's all real. It's all equally real. And having not been to the moon, but I can just imagine you get there and go, oh, look at the powder. You have to just be observational. Yeah. You're looking and going, oh, this is amazing. But
you know what? One of my favorite moments in this movie is like he has like moments like where it's like Dick Cavett or like Walter Cronkite, and you like blend those things seamlessly with like the fiction, the Linklater imagination, and then you have like but real stuff that happened. And because it's animation, you kind of can't tell the difference between what's real and like in a good way.
And that's kind of a narrative trick too to make these kind of counter histories. Like a Philip Roth book, Plot Against America or something. So you have this utter specificity of a time and a place. It feels real. You kind of lull the reader or the viewer into your reality. And then parallel, you have this kind of fantastical, ridiculous on paper thing, but you hope the audience will kind of accept the reality that you've created and incorporate that into that. So it's kind of a fun storytelling technique, maybe.
Yeah. There's this one bit that I realized in the movie the tar on the bottom of the feet. Can you really get off tar with gasoline?
Well, we sure tried. We have that in a rag. You just kind of scrub your feet.
It's like there's a bit in the movie where the kids go.
Well, that was Galveston at that time.
Galveston, and they get like tar from like oil spills like floating on shore, and literally and then the kids take gasoline and pour it on their feet to rub off the oil. And I was like, is that a real thing? I was like, it's crazy.
It was. Well, gas. That's one particular summer I'm referencing. Gas was 19 cents a gallon. It was like gas wars. So yeah, it was a pretty cheap cleaner, I think. At that time, at least that's what we did in the back of the truck. Here's a little gallon can, scrub your feet in gasoline. No, the film's really a portrait of a lot of dangerous kind of child abusey adjacent things. Kids are getting paddled, bones are getting broken, they're being poisoned with DDT.
Well, the Red Rover moment.
Yeah, arms.
It's so funny because like I wasn't born in 1969, but like to see like what has like kind of remained the same, like the kid getting his like arm broken playing Red Rover, like that's a thing that still happens.
That still happens.
Yeah, it is really funny. But anyway, the best part I think about this movie is how you can watch it and you literally have the magical realism of a kid. The character I play in the movie, I build the capsule too small, and the only person we can fit inside of is this kid, which is funny as hell. But then you have, you know, all the specificity of growing up in suburban Houston, but like you realize, you know, like decades later, it's still the same childhood that I don't know if it's still the same childhood now. I don't know if you'd.
I don't know.
You know.
I think the essence of it, probably not. I mean, maybe a little more free range childhood back then. I mean, I think there's been a generation or two of supervised play, where back then you were pretty unsupervised.
Yeah.
Now you have parents, you know, afraid of all the bad things that can happen. So it's hard to get away from a parent hovering over your play as a young person now, where we were just left alone until dinner time, you know.
It's like also like the collective, like we were talking about this like earlier, it's like, but the NASA, there's like this collective moment, right? Like everybody's sharing a part in this event. There's very few, everybody's sharing, and then they're sitting around the TV, they're all watching this really cool thing. I don't know if you would have that anymore. Everybody be watching it kind of isolated.
And
you
plus
know?
I can't think of an event now that would really unify us all.
Like that.
Yeah. And a positive thing. You know, when there's a disaster or something horrible happen, we're all kind of joined in it, but it's not a positive thing. If you really think about it, when was the last time a positive thing that wasn't kind of nationalistic or, you know, that we could all, 600 million people around the world could watch and go, what an achievement. Look what we are capable of. So the more I thought about it historically, I thought, well, you know, that was a really unique time, because I can't think of something that much of a human accomplishment that we all kind of rallied around.
600 million people were watching that simultaneously?
Yeah, and that's before, there's not even 200 million Americans at that point. So it was a worldwide the world was noticing, as they should. You know, it's a hell of a TV production too.